Granna, who inspired you?
People inspire me, Ian. I watch people who have used their faith to do life. Their life may have been an easy one, and they are grateful for every blessing that they have. They are not ashamed to give God the glory for what they have and for their health and family. Their life may have been a hard one. Many of these individuals could have become bitter with life and their relationships, but have chosen to rely on their faith to get them through the rough times. Examples: young parents with a child with special needs. They show tremendous love and care for that child while carrying on with life in as normal a way as they can. People with a chronic illness that requires them to alter parts of their life, and they keep on the best they can. People with unexpected terminal diagnosis, and they rely on what is ahead for them in eternity. People with busy schedules of juggling jobs, caring for children, and trying to stay active in their church. People in different jobs where they care for people whose lives depend on them. Teachers who show care for all the. When you define wise, there are a variety of definitions depending on how your heart defines it. I have learned from many wise people over the years, but when I saw this title, I immediately thought of Marianne Sanders. She taught me so much by example of being a virtuous Christian lady. Ian, I wish you could have known Marianne, Ralph, David, and Steve were the epitome of the great South Georgia farmer and family. They were devoted to their Lord, their home, and love for each other, their farm and family, their church, and their community. They could easily have been the farm family of the year. Ralph farmed with his dad and brother on the family farm. It was a very successful farm. The boys were being taught about the farm in case they chose to follow in the family farming business, which they did not. An insect bit Ralph. I believe it was a mosquito, and he developed encephalitis as a result. This illness profoundly impacted this brilliant young farmer in a way that changed their entire life. His case was severe and left him with reduced mental function, but he still had memories of what life had been like. Marianne had to step up and handle the business end of their part of the farm. The boys had to step up to take care of the property and the house they lived in. Ralph had to give up his work at the farm. He was unable to handle any of the dangerous farming equipment. We did not know the Sanders family when this happened to them, but knowing Marianne, she went through a tremendous grief process, but quickly stepped up to the plate to adjust to their new normal. All her hopes for their future were drastically changed, and that meant her life was changed. Marianne became the driver, Ralph's health care provider, and advocate. Ralph was stubborn at times, and she would call JW to help her with her reasoning with him. She faces all these obstacles with grace. The only way she could have done this was to rely on her faith in the Lord. She had so much support in the church and community, but sometimes that is not enough. You have to rely on your faith. She wrote a letter to us right before we moved to Vienna. She volunteered to keep Jeffrey and Jason 2 years and 4 months. While we settled in after our move, I knew her and wondered if she was capable of caring for two young ones. Boy, were my doubts unfounded. She loved children and kept the 2-year-olds in Sunday school. Miss Marianne has loved many children. What a treasure. She was the most compassionate, loving person I could have met in Vienna. We developed a deep friendship. She would call and volunteer to do things to help me, even before I knew that I needed help. She could have become a very bitter person, Ian, when her life changed, but she handled all the changes with grace. I learned a great deal from her simply by observing her. She put her faith into action. She showed love and interest in all who came near her. She loved Ralph and her boys unconditionally. She was always volunteering in any way she could at the church. She loved our family. She always invited the guest preacher for a revival and us to her house one night for a meal. Ralph was also a gracious host. She loved to help. One Christmas, we could not find a crisscross crash set for Jason. She knew how badly he wanted it. She was going to Albany for a doctor's appointment for Ralph and called to say she would stop by their big toy store to see if they had the item. Sure enough, they did, and she brought it to us. But when we set it out on Christmas Eve, part of the track was missing. Santa wrote Jason a letter and said Rudolph took the curve too fast, lost some of the track. He assured Jason that on the way to Calhoun, the day after Christmas, he was sure his parents would stop at a store and find one with all the tracks. And sure enough, we did. Marianne loved that story. She made sure Jeffrey had a birthday party on his 5th birthday while I was in the hospital for Jody's birth. Marianne made lemonade out of the lemons that life had given her. She was a dear saint, and I will always cherish the many memories I have of her. There are many more examples of people who rely on their faith to get them through good and bad times in life. I'm also inspired by people who show joy and happiness in all they do. You might think that they have an ideal life. Some do, but some do not. They do not let external circumstances rob them of the joy of life and relationships. And when you define wise, there are a variety of definitions depending on how your heart defines it. I have learned from many wise people over the years, but when I saw this title, I immediately thought of Marianne Sanders. She taught me so much by example of being a virtuous Christian lady.
Granna, what are your special talents?
I don't know that I have special talents, Ben, but I do have special interests. As all three children celebrated their birthdays, I would sometimes attempt to decorate a cake for them. When we lived in Dublin, I took a cake decorating class and made some cakes, but then I didn't try decorating them. But when Kaylin was celebrating her first birthday, I thought that I would try a cake. It was baked in a molded cake pan of a standing duck. She loved rubber duckies at that time. After I took it out of the pan, the head fell off. I needed it to be stable since we had to take it to Birmingham. So I made another one and reinforced it with a wooden rod, then decorated it in yellow. I also made her a small one to play with on her first birthday. So that started a tradition. She has had a cake for her birthday every year since. Many times she didn't receive it on her birthday, but she did later as we celebrated with her. For their first birthday, Andrew had a Noah's Ark cake, Daniel had a ball, Ian had Curious George, Ben had Mickey Mouse, and Sam had a penguin. I have made cakes for them all on their birthdays. At one time, I had a PowerPoint slideshow of them, but it is no longer up to date. It was fun. I have always enjoyed sewing and making many of our clothes, including leisure suits when they were popular, as well as other items for the children. One fun project was to create Kaylin's version of most of the Disney character outfits. For Andrew and Daniel, I made Revolutionary War costumes. For Ian, I made a character he wanted. Ben and Sam received hand-me-downs. I have made curtains, pillows, and covered chairs for all three of our children's homes. Ben, anything I do that involves my family has been fun.
Granna, what inspires you most about your friends?
Daniel, I think of all my friends who are so special to me, and they all have different qualities. Some are loud and jovial, some are quiet and happy, but there are some common bonds. My friends have an appreciation for life. They do not take a day on this earth for granted, nor their relationships with other people. Most of my friends are Christians, but not all of them are, and that is not a criterion for friendship. In fact, as a Christian, I am to develop friendships with unbelievers and influence them to have a personal relationship with Christ. I have friends with whom I agree and disagree politically, and again, that is not a criterion for friendship. Friends treasure other friends. They are willing to spend time with them, and since we are in a pandemic, talk to them on the phone. I have friends with whom I have not spoken or communicated in some time, and when we do, it's as if we had never been apart. We have experienced life together, some good times and some rough times. We have a history together, and I think that bonds people in very emotional ways. I love the way my friends love to laugh and find good in every situation. That goes a long way in fostering connections and building each other up. I trust my friends to be who they claim to be. I trust them not to be someone else and talk badly about me when I'm not around. Those people are not true friends. To make a friend, you must invest time in getting to know a person and show concern for their interests. I treasure the friendships I have developed over the years. I am blessed.
Granna, what is one of your fondest childhood memories?
Kaylin. When I was born, we lived on Peters Street in Calhoun. Mother's brother, Paul, Bud, lived with us. The house was a two-bedroom house, but when the twins, Bill and I, were born, they added on to the house. Bud had his room, Mother and Dad had theirs, and Bill and I had one. It was just a normal thing for all five of us to be living together. Daddy and Bud rode to Marietta every day for work. Then Bud decided that living in Marietta would be a lot more convenient. So when I was 8, we moved to a 3-bedroom house in Marietta. Again, each pair had a bedroom. My mother became pregnant with Michael when I was 9. He had to be in the room with Mother and Daddy for a while. We rearranged rooms, and I had a room, Bill and Michael had a room, Bud had a room, and Mother and Daddy had a small den as their bedroom. It worked well for us. When Daddy was pastoring the two-night church in Cherokee County, they built a pastorium, and we moved there. Bud did not move with us. He rented a mobile home in Marietta, but came to see us every Thursday evening for dinner. I had an excellent, spacious room. Bill and Michael had theirs, and Mother and Daddy had a big bedroom all to themselves. What was unusual about our living arrangement was that, with 6 people living in the house, we only celebrated 3 birthdays per year. Mother and Bud were twins. Bill and I are twins, and Michael was born on Daddy's birthday. Mother said that Michael was due July 9th, but Daddy said he would be born on his birthday. Mother went into quick labor the evening of July 3rd. As he was slowly driving to the hospital, Mother told him to hurry up. He said okay, he was thinking that if he moved more slowly, they would not get to the hospital until July 4th, and the baby would be born on his birthday. Well, Michael waited and was born on July 4th. He was my baby doll to play with. I enjoyed him so much.